I hope you guys are excited because we are diving into two of my favorite video series of every year, and this is reading YouTuber's best books of 2024. So I, in part one, read 10 books. In this one, we are also reading 10, and these are just books that I have seen YouTubers put onto their best lists of 2020. I didn't really make notes of who said what book, but what I did is I made a huge list of pretty much every book that I saw that I had not already read, and then I ended up breaking it down into things that I actually really want to read, things that I think that I have a really decent chance of actually enjoying, and some of the more common ones that were repeated. So when we did for part one, it was a crazy success. It came out with, well, ended up coming out with quite a few 5 stars, and that is honestly exactly what I'm always hoping for, and exactly what I am hoping for in this round again. We have a lot of books that are not in my typical genres that I read. There's some historical fiction, some more literary fiction, stuff that is not really my normal wheelhouse, but they are books that honestly I've heard a lot about throughout the years. Some of them are much more backlist, and makes me really excited to dive into these and see how it goes. So for each book, when I get to it, we'll maybe have a little bit of a chat then about what made me choose that one and kind of why I'm really excited to read it. But the 10 books that we'll be reading in this book, there's Of Fire and Blood by Ryan Cahill, Vita Nostra, Pachinko, The Women by Kristen Hanna, Beartown by Fred Rockman, Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruggio, Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, Incidents Around the House, The Secret History, and Days of Abandonment. Like I said, a lot of these typically not genres that I read in very often, but that does make me really excited to give them a try. So let's just dive into the reading. I am so excited to get this video started. All right, so I started the first 2 books that we're reading for this video, and I started The Women by Kristen Hanna and Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante. So I'm kind of having mixed feelings about both of them. So first off, The Women, it is following the story of a young woman in the 70s who, I think it must be the 70s, who ends up joining the military to become a nurse for the Vietnam War in the US. Her brother had joined the army and she decides to follow in his footsteps. And at the same time, her family has a very deep-rooted military tradition, but specifically only celebrates the men in her family. So somebody who she meets basically brings forward this idea that, women can be heroes too. And she's like, oh, why don't I put this nursing degree I have to good use and actually go do something. So she ends up going to Vietnam to serve as a nurse, and we're following right now just all of the terrible things she sees there. I mean, I guess I don't know a crazy amount about the US wars. I'm not American, so I don't know a lot of details about them, but I do know that this war was supposed to be very bad and that a lot of the veterans were treated terribly. And I think we're going to really get into kind of that. And yeah, we're just really following her experiences as a nurse there right now, and the fact that she's really finding herself as a nurse, especially a trauma nurse, and realizing that this is potentially very much her calling. I really wanted to pick this one because I have read, I think, 2 books from Kristen Hanna at this point, which were The Nightingale and Firefly Lane. Both of them were 5-star reads for me, and both of them were very emotionally impactful. So I really am kind of hoping that this one goes down that same vein for me. I'm really anticipating that I'll like this one, but I do have to say, I don't know if this is an issue that I just have not picked up on in her other books, or if there's a difference with this one, but I'm really finding the writing to be not great. It feels very simplistic in a lot of ways, and I'm really not that impressed with the writing in this one. It could just be subject matter too, because maybe if I was more invested in the story, if I was really brought into it, I could really get invested in it, and at that point maybe the writing wouldn't be an issue. But it's just kind of taking me out because I'm really aware of how much I'm not enjoying the writing. Also, I guess I didn't look at the synopsis at this at all before I decided to go in. I do know that she does primarily historical books, which I guess was kind of my hesitance why I typically don't read them. But also, I don't really like content about wars. I don't really I won't watch any movies that center a war. I don't necessarily love books that revolve wars, just primarily because of first off, I don't like anything that's historical fiction, and also I don't I find it really hard to enjoy something that is centering all of this violence, and just I can't fully get into it. There's the odd one every now and then, The Nightingale. That one is, I think, World War II, and I enjoyed it, but also that I read it when I was in university, which, let's say 8 years ago, 8-9 years ago, and at the time I didn't really have as much of an issue. It's really been more in the last few years that I've realized I really just can't do things that involve that level of violence, and I also don't like books that are really going to be sad, which just there's different levels of there's a sad that is you go into, and yes, it's emotionally hard-hitting, but you can move past it, versus different levels of devastation emotionally sad. And those are the ones that, like, I don't know, I find it kind of associate with war books, where it's just like you come out of it and all hope is lost. And that's just very much how I associate these war books. And I can't do those. I've realized, like, for my mental health, I cannot do books that are just going to emotionally devastate me. So that's why I tend to stay away from like anything centering a war. I don't know if this is going to go that way, but I can say that like there are some scenes already that have been very rough. And we are like, I guess she's really not shying away from some of the things that a trauma nurse would see. So I'm not sure, like, I'm still very unsure of how I'm feeling about this book. I don't know where else it's going. I'm kind of assuming we're going to follow her as she goes back to the US following her tour in Vietnam, but I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know how much of the book that will be. We'll see. And then I started The Days of Abandonment by Alana Ferrante, and very unfortunately, I'm not really connecting with this one either. It's very short. It's I think under 200 pages, but we're following a woman. Her husband has recently left her, and we're following kind of just her. It's very stream of consciousness of her just like going through her days and like really not coping well with the fact that he's left. She's left to raise her 2 children and their dog. She's left just like Leah in the lurch. He gives her no way to contact her and just like 100% leaves. And we're really following her, like basically like the obsessive thoughts that she's having about him and this new woman that he left her for, and really like spiraling downward. I don't know if I'm enjoying it. I don't really feel like I am, but I also like, I don't know. This is just something very different from what I typically read. Like it's very more literary fiction, which is another thing I hardly ever read. And again, I wanted to challenge myself to read a bit more of different genres in this video and really make myself kind of explore a few other things and see like whether or not I will like them. So it's like what I'm really hoping that I'll like. I have also read, I think it was My Brilliant Friend by Alana Ferrante, and I never continued on in that series. I would love to one day. It was just one that I really enjoyed when I read it. I just really was not motivated to continue on in this series just because it was such a heavy, like big, dense book that it felt like a lot to want to continue on in. So maybe one day I will. I'm just like not quite there yet. So this was kind of my way of like dipping back into her writing. But yeah, I don't know how I'm feeling. I decided to DNF The Days of Abandonment. It was short. It was really short, and I feel kind of bad that I couldn't do it, but it was so not for me. Like, it's kind of ridiculous how much this one just like was not a book for me, because I could not at any means get into it. Just, we're in this woman's head. It's very stream of consciousness, very like all of her dark thoughts of all that that's going on and how she feels about her divorce and all of this, like this deep anger against her husband. Completely understandable. But there's this one scene where things are kind of unraveling, and she, like, one of her children is very sick. One of, like, her dog is almost dying, and she's like not doing anything about it. And I just could not move past that part. And I just kept like, I don't want to see anything bad happen to a dog in a book. And the fact that I really wasn't enjoying it with it, I couldn't do it. So yeah, we're DNFing that one, which is a pretty bad way to start this off. But oh well, at least it's out of the way, and hopefully all of the others will be better. All right, so I have finished The Women, and I feel kind of bad about it, but I am gonna only give this one 3 stars. Like, it is one that I think it was an important story to tell because it was talking about the Vietnam War, which I guess is like very not as talked about. It's not as well recognized, and the treatment of veterans after they came home from the war was like truly horrifying for this. And especially in this, we're bringing awareness to the fact that there were quite a few women who were deployed as nurses, and they were kind of never officially recognized, and this book is their story. So I think it was like important messaging and story, but at the same time, I really did not enjoy the writing in this one. I don't know what it was, but I just really did not enjoy the writing. Like, I think that this was very weak compared to all of her other books, and I was really noticing it in this one. Like, normally I'm not as big a stickler on certain writing choices, but it felt overly simplistic. It didn't feel like it has matched up to the same levels that I've read from her before. So of course that was very disappointing, and I'm glad I read it, glad I know. But yeah, I guess like this one just wasn't for me, which I'm glad I gave it a try though, because again, historical fiction, not really my thing, but I am trying to push myself to get a bit more out of my comfort zone. So that one, not the best. We're really like not off to the best start ever, what I feel a little upset about. But on another note, I did start reading the next book, which was Vita Nostra, and this one I do think is going to be very highly rated for me. It's like, when I hear people talk about it, they say it is the weirdest, most mind-bending like dark academia they've ever read, with like weird magic and weird shit happening. And yeah, 100%. I have never been more confused reading like a dark academia, but confused in the absolute best possible possible way. Like, I could not be more happy at how weird this book is, which is such a random thing to say, but like, I love how strange this book is. We're following a young woman in Russia, and I think it's like the 80s or 90s, but she is on a beach vacation with her mother when she's approached by this man who basically gives her a task. He's like, I want you to go to this beach every night at 3 a.m. exactly, strip down naked and then swim. He's like, nobody will see you, but I want you to go do that. And every time she does it, she goes back to her like rental and vomits up these gold coins. And he keeps approaching her with these weird tasks. Like, another one is that he wants her to go run every morning at 5 a.m. Like, when she goes back to her house, go running every morning at 5 a.m. and then find a place in the bushes to pee. And there's just like weird random rules that he's asking to follow. And every time she does them, she vomits up these gold coins. And then he ends up approaching her and basically saying, okay, you've been following my tasks. You've been doing everything I tell you. You are like, you have passed the test. You are accepted to this special institute. And it ends up kind of like completely changing her plans in life, because until then she'd been planning on going to this one university. But as soon as he tells her this, she's like, okay, I guess that's my life. This is what I'm doing. And goes to this intensely weird university where they are trained, like, it's not a normal school by any means, but like, you're just there and they're doing like mind practices and like these weird like specialties. And it's so hard to describe exactly what they're studying, but it's just weird as hell. And it is fantastic. It is just one of those where like, we're 100% absorbed into like them just obsessing over everything that's happening. And I can't even say too much about it because I don't want to like ruin the weirdness if someone were to read it, but this is strange. This is perfection, and absolutely enjoying it. So like, so much so. All right, we have many updates. So first off, I finished Vita Nostra, and this was weird as hell. Like, I really do not know how else to describe this book as intensely weird dark academia with magic that was super confusing but also super interesting. And I really am very confused about a lot of what happened, but I also loved it. And I think that this was brilliant but weird and just fantastic. Like, this was one of the most mind-bending academia stories that I followed, just because so much of this, we're very confused about what's happening. We're confused. The characters are confused. There's this weird thing that they are learning. They don't necessarily know until towards the end what they are actually studying for. They just have 100% accepted that this is going to be their life. This is going to be the course of their studies, and they have committed, but they don't necessarily know where it's going. They just see weird things happening. They see some potential kind of magic thing, and they start going along with it. And we are following a main character who decides to go to this academy. She gets accepted to study something, and she 100% devotes her life to it. Just through this process, she really is going in, giving everything her 100%, completely changes her as a person. So she is no longer like anything really who she was when she first started school, but she is a very different person by the end of the studies. And we really follow her as she just 100% like trusts the process, trusts what her instructors are telling her, and the way that she's like, the things that she's learning change who she is and change like her physically, change her mentally, and all of this stuff. And it is just so weird and confusing, but I loved it. And I'm really not going to say much about what they are studying because, one, I'm still a little confused. If we're being honest, I'm still a little bit confused about the magics itself, but also I think it's so much better to go into this one with as little knowledge as possible, because it is just like one of those ones that you have to just go along with the ride, similar to how the characters are, and 100% accept that. You don't necessarily know what's happening. You're going to be confused, but I think that's kind of the fun journey that you're going on. So yeah, I love this. I'm giving it 5 stars. This was insanely good. I think one of the top dark academia books I will always be recommending now, and like absolutely really fits into this academic studying super interesting field. Loved it. So that one is done, and now I've started 2 other books, which I feel I'm really finally starting to focus on this video. This has been filmed over a broad period of time, and I'm trying to really focus in and get this finished soon. But I have started Pachinko and Of Blood and Fire. So I'll start first about Pachinko because this is historical fiction. Another, like, I don't typically read it. We talked about this before when we were reading The Women. I don't read historical fiction. It is personally not my thing. I just have never been like a huge lover of history, unfortunately. And it is very rare that I find a book that like really stands out for me. But this is also one of those books that so many people rave about, and I have heard so many insanely good things about. It was on the New York Times 100 best books of the 21st century. Like, there's so many good things I've heard about this one, and I've wanted to read it. I just feel like it's one of those books that I needed a specific reason to, if that makes sense. Like I really needed to find a way to force myself to read it, and this is a perfect opportunity. So this is a multi-generational story of Koreans living in Korea and later moving to Japan throughout, I believe, the course of Second World War. So we're following several generations of a family, and that is one thing I have to say that kind of scared me when I heard that too, of like, I sometimes find multi-generational stories to be a little bit too much, a little bit too like just quick paced, if that makes sense. Like we're not necessarily sticking with any of the characters too much, we're just seeing snapshots of their life. So that is something that's a little concerning for me right now. But where we are right now, we are following, I guess, the second generation, because, or third, because we're following the parents of this one boy. He and his wife had a daughter, and we're following this daughter now as she has left Korea and moved to Japan with her husband. So she basically got pregnant out of wedlock and ended up getting married to a man who was a friend of the family, and he has taken them to Japan, and we're following now their life there. And we're following kind of, you could say, kind of like the repercussions of her making this decision to originally, well, she was having an affair with a man who she thought was going to marry her, but then she learned that he was actually already married in Japan and wanted to take her as his Korean wife, and she did not want to do that. She was not okay with that. And we're following now kind of like her life with her children, and I think we are leading up to the war right now, World War II, because we're seeing a lot of things about like the political, like the state of the world in Japan and the state of what it is like to be a Korean living in Japan in these times, and a lot of how difficult it is because the family is very much a horror family. And it's just, you can tell it's going to be one of those books that like really is intense and going to be hard-hitting in a lot of ways, because I can't anticipate a lot of great things happening for this family, unfortunately, just because of the type of story that we're following, and also like the time of the world, plus the fact that there are wars happening. Like it's really one that I anticipate a lot of bad things, unfortunately, will be happening. But I guess we're going to be following all of the children and everything as it happens. So I'm interested. Again, like not necessarily something that I would have went out of my way to read, but I have been interested to read this for quite a while. And finally, we do have a fantasy book. So I guess Vita Nostra kind of counted as fantasy, but this one is like pure fantasy for me, and it is reminding me of like a lot of the classic fantasies that I've used to read. So Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. This is the first book in a series, and I've heard so many people, especially like I think in the last year more than ever, rave about how much they enjoyed this one. And of course I want to read it. A lot of the hype seems to be for later books in the series, to be fair, but I'm not going to just like, you know, jump to book 4 or like read the first 3 and then talk about the 4th one in this video. We're going to start at the beginning. So where we are, it is a world, it seems like there's magic present in the world, but we're following young boys who live in this small town that is not necessarily isolated from the rest of the world, but they're giving the classic tropes of like young farmers or just like young men, hunters, who live in this small town and haven't necessarily interacted with the world at large. One of the main characters, his father, was a very decorated war hero, and he presumably has gone off, experienced a lot of things in the world, and now living peacefully at home. So the boys are going through, there's this one ritual that happens every year when the boys hit a certain age. They go out in groups for, I forgot exactly what it's called, but they go through this ritual where they go into the woods and they have to survive a certain amount of time in there and bring back something that they've hunted and killed to the town square. Whoever has the most dangerous prey, they win. They win the thing for the year. And once you go through this, you are proclaimed a man. So we have these 3 young boys. They're all friends. They go out into the woods and come across Uroks, which I'm guessing kind of an orc type of thing, and end up fighting them. Something weird happens when they're fighting them. One of the boys, it seems like, mysteriously burned this Urok. We don't know how. Potentially he has some magic. And they go back to town. They're proclaimed men. And shortly after that, they start on a journey, and things go intensely wrong, and they're brought into contact with other travelers and are very quickly being brought into a bit more the like mystery of the world at whole, and a lot into the magic that exists within this world. So they're traveling with a band of, I wouldn't say like thieves or anything, they're wanted men, and they quickly find that out, and things happen. I'm interested. I'm very interested. It is giving a lot of the ones that I'm thinking in particular, like the beginning of the Wheel of Time, when we are following the young men plus our other main characters as they are like traveling away from their small town and going like to experience what happens in the world. Also kind of like Aragon also, and just like very much getting a vibe of like small countrymen going off to be magical people or something like that. But really enjoying it so far, really having a great vibe from it, and just like I can see all these classic fantasy references and like classic fantasy tropes, I guess, and that works really well for me. So I'm having a great time with this one so far. Okay, I finished Pachinko finally. We're like quite a bit. It's been a while since I updated. So I finished it and I did really enjoy this one. I will say I really enjoyed it, but it did not emotionally impact me the same way I think a lot of people are feeling. And I think I'm really noticing this because I just finished something that's giving me similar vibes. I just finished, very different. It's fantasy, but Jade Legacy. And these both have the same vein where they are spanning many years, many people throughout the course of generations of people, and very quickly, like basically quickly overviewing their lives and the most impactful things that have happened. And I really don't think this type of book works for me because Jade Legacy, just in a similar vein, the first two books in that series I enjoyed significantly more than the third one, which was like spanning 20 years and following multiple generations. And yeah, Pachinko, same thing. I think this was beautifully written. I think that the story was beautiful. I think that a lot of what we saw was very impactful, very intense, very profound, and even like the historical aspects of it really interesting to learn about, because there were a lot of things that I will say did not know a lot about, like specifically the things were what happened to a lot of the Koreans during World War II, and what a lot of things were like for Koreans living within Japan during this time period, and I mean many of the years afterwards as well. That part really enjoyed learning about, and really happy that I did get a chance to do it. I think that our main characters, it was really profound seeing a lot of the things that they went through in life and seeing a lot of the intense hardships that but also the way they pulled themselves out of it, and just all of the ways that they've managed to live their life. Fantastic. But at the same time, I don't think I was as emotionally invested as a lot of people are when they read this. And I think it's just very much like I can't do these multi-generational stories. They just do not do it the same way to me that it does for many others. Unfortunately, like I really wish it did, but I don't think I can get as emotionally invested. Just I want to be more with one character and really see like certain parts of their lives, see more intense things from them instead of just snapshots of many characters. That's kind of my issue. Still enjoyed it, still giving it a 4-star, but at the same time it wasn't just like, it wasn't the 5-star read that everybody seems to give this one. It was good, but yeah, wasn't an all-time favorite for me. Okay, so I have now finished Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill, and I enjoyed this one. I will say I did enjoy this, and I'm really interested to see where the series potentially goes. But at the same time, like it felt very much like a fantasy series that wasn't necessarily anything new. In a lot of ways, like it felt like a lot of tropes were being reused, and it didn't really, well, I mean, it felt like something that I've read many times before. And that's not necessarily a dig at it, because a lot of these tropes that are used, they're things that are popular. They're things that clearly work. They have been used over and over again. And it just felt like a bit of a classic fantasy, like, but unfortunately, like with no real spin to it. Like it was fun. It was fun. And I think that this is the author's debut. And he's published quite a few other books by now, like quite a few others in this series. And I'm definitely interested to continue on with it, because I'd really like to see where this world goes, if other things get more interesting, if certain things get more fleshed out, if we get something a little bit more new, a little bit more unique in this world. But overall, like I really don't have any issues with it. I think that it was like very fine. So I'm giving it 3 stars, because it was just one that was like very middle of the range for me. It didn't really do anything that spectacular, but at the same time, like nothing terrible. It felt very similar to other things I've read. It actually gave me a lot of vibes of Aragon, which there are certain things for that, but I think the biggest thing that reminded me, it was like these young men are leaving their village, they're traveling with this group of people, and being like, well, they're with an elf, they're being pursued by this magical creature known as a fade. I think that's what it was. But it was like giving very much vibes of a lot of things that happened early on in the first Aragon book. And that's one of my like favorite books of all time. So like I can't necessarily fault it for that. It just, again, like didn't really feel anything too new. So I did enjoy it. Yeah, this makes me excited to kind of continue on and see like what other books this author has put out, and see what I think about the rest of the series as well. And then I started Instance Around the House by Josh Malerman, which I was fucking excited to get this one. I think that Bird Box, which is one of his first books, it is genuinely one of the only horror books that like I had a panic attack reading. Like it scared me that much. And there haven't been a lot of other books that I could say have done that. Some that get me like a little bit anxious, and you know, if I'm reading them home alone at night, maybe get a little scared, but not to quite that level. And talking to like the local librarians at my library as well, a few of them told me that this was like their favorite book of, well, not their favorite, but like one of the scariest horror books that they've read in ages. And that makes me very excited. So I'm a good way through it so far. Really, really enjoying it. It is creepy as hell. And it's a fast read, but I'm having such a great time. So we're following an 8-year-old girl named Bella, and she has this creature who lives in her closet called Other Mommy. And she lives with her parents, but Other Mommy comes out at night, talks to her, and keeps asking her like, oh, will you let me into your heart? And things like Bella always says no, but Other Mommy's getting more and more persistent. And things are starting to go weird. Because originally she was just in the closet and she was in Bella's room. Now she can go to other houses. Now she's starting to see her outside. And Other Mommy is just getting a little bit more persistent and a little bit more insane. And it is fucking creepy as shit. It's just like this little girl who is being haunted. And I really, really liked. I think that this is fantastic. And oh boy, this is good. I'm really not that far from the end right now, but it's continuously just getting creepier and creepier, which is great. And like, I find any books that like horror to do with kids, ooh, like count me out. But you know, this one, it's going good. So hi, okay, big update. Finished Incidents Around the House by Josh Millerman. Really, really creepy. And yeah, this is creepy. This was weird. This was unsettling in a lot of ways. Yeah, we're just following a little girl and she is being haunted by Other Mommy who is trying to come into her heart. And Other Mommy starts haunting like the entire family basically at some point and controlling their entire lives. I really think that like the first half of this book was the creepiest part. And after a little bit, it just kind of got repetitive and like they're trying to escape Other Mommy. They're trying to do a new method to like potentially take her down. And it just started, don't show your back. It just started feeling a little repetitive after a little bit. And definitely the first part was like the scariest of it. The first little bit was feeling like it could have been a 5-star. And then it started getting repetitive and a little more boring. So at that point, it kind of, I think, slipped down more to a 4-star for me. But it really, really did stay creepy. And because it's told from the perspective of a child, it just like, you know, something about that just felt so intense to me. So really enjoyed it. Really would recommend. Yeah, it was a good horror edition. And definitely see why it's on some people's best of the year. Just it didn't quite get there for me. And I have started the next two I'll be talking about. First off, Beartown by Frederick Bachman. I'm this far into it. I don't want to say I'm not enjoying it, but I'm bored. And this is very much, I think the action has not started yet, but this is very much not my type of book. And again, this video is all about experimentation. It is seeing what happens. But in this one, so Beartown, it's this tiny Nordic town that is basically entirely run by hockey. It is all everyone cares about. Hockey stars are like the golden boys of this town. And it is the reason that so many people like live and breathe for hockey. And already we're following the few perspectives of people who are like deeply entrenched in this hockey society. Like we're following some players, the coaches, all of these people. And what happens is, so yeah, it's saying that they are responsible for the hopes of the entire town. And there is a violent act that leaves a young girl traumatized in a town in turmoil. That has not happened yet. And I do think when that does, it will really, really pick up the meat of the story and really start things going down a more intense path. But just at the moment right now, it's just like, I don't know. I'm not a hockey person to begin with, which feels mildly blasphemous for any Canadian to say, but it's very, very hockey heavy and very heavy on just people being like intensely entrenched in sport. Not necessarily my thing. The other one I'm reading is The Secret History. And this is touted kind of as like the ultimate dark academia, like the one that has created the entire genre and the one that has set everything kind of off in this world. And we're following like a young poor student who gets accepted to this university. I don't know if it's super prestigious, but this university where he then ends up being accepted into this very, very exclusive program studying Greek, which basically it's one professor who entirely runs this program, and there's 5 students who are like basically 100% like under his care. All of their courses are approved by him. He runs everything to do with their education type of thing. And we're following a young guy who ends up being accepted into this group. And now we're following him as he's like very like trying to fit in, while all of them very academic driven, very pretentious, very wealthy, majority of them, while he really, really doesn't fit in, but has been trying to kind of like play off that he does. Really interested in where this could go. It is 100% like intensely pretentious. And you kind of had to know that going into this one, you know, like it's very academically driven and it is very, very like intense studying of all these classics and all of this philosophy and languages and all of that. And like, of course, that just like runs through in the writing. And I'm not surprised by that, but I do think that that it's mildly taking me out of the story because it's not letting me like sink into the writing. I'm just really, really taken aback, and like every time something like so intensely like pretentious is mentioned, I'm just like, oh god, that again. So we're gonna keep going on these two. They are not off to the best start, I guess, but we can hope. We can hope that things turn around. Man, this was a hard book. I like not hard to, I mean, it was hard to read. It was hard to read. It dealt with some difficult topics, and this was good. It was very, very good. I do have to preface with saying that, but man, it dealt with some difficult stuff, and it was a very upsetting read. So it's this small town. Hockey is everything for this town. It is like the only thing its residents care about. It's what gives its residents pride, and of course the hockey players, because of that, are kind of like the gods of the town basically. And we are following in particular a high school team, and so the teenage boys are terrible and do a lot of really bad shit, and one of it ends up coming to light where the star of the team ends up assaulting a young girl, and she comes to light with it, and it ends up completely rocking this town where everybody like basically takes sides and like can't believe that this young boy's life is now being ruined, and like just really, really upsetting things of instantly everybody rallying behind him and just so angry that somebody would dare to like do something that could affect the hockey team and like all of these things. And yeah, it was not a pleasant read, but it was really good. And like really hard to talk about too because it's just very, very emotional, and there's a lot of shit happening. So I got very angry reading it, and honestly, like I enjoyed this quite a bit, but I do like, I'm not giving it 5-star, I'm giving it 4-star because I do think that there was just so much talk about hockey, and that was like really, really taking me out of the book, and I was getting really bored at any point that it was like intense emphasis on the hockey itself. Aside from that, it was emotional, it was impactful, it was incredible. Yeah, just too much hockey. And I do think I'm gonna be like continuing on in this series because I'm really, really interested to see now what happens in this world and with these characters. But yeah, this was good. Would recommend, but would also recommend checking trigger warnings because I could definitely see it being incredibly upsetting for a lot of people. But yeah, this one's done. Can't even begin to explain how needed this is right now. I am in the midst of PMSing, and everything's terrible. So hi, I have two very disappointing updates, which great. Like again, when I told myself I was doing a risk with some of these books, yeah, we're not doing so hot. So first off, I finished The Secret History, and I do have to say this was wildly disappointing. I really, really was excited going into this one because it is, lauded as like one of the best sci-fi, not sci-fi, Jesus, one of the best like dark academia books. Also, I think it's like the book that set off the dark academia genre and got people really, really into the idea of it. So of course I was excited. I like dark academia books. I like exploring, the different things that happen in this. Sometimes they might be pretentious, but I can usually get on board with that. This one I could not. It was just like really, really way too much, and also nothing at all. We are following essentially a group of students. They are in this very prestigious like ancient Greek program at their university. There's like 5 or 6 of them, and they are basically, their entire education revolves around studying ancient Greek. And they, of course, because they spend all day together, they're all very academically driven, they create weird relationships with each other. And this group somehow decided that they were going to try a ritualistic murder. They killed someone. Then one of the people who was not involved found out about it, and they decided to then murder him to get away with it. That might be a spoiler, honestly, sorry if it is, but then we're just following very much like this group as they plot that murder and then deal with the guilt that is tearing them apart about it. And for some reason, when you hear a group doing murder, committing murders, and just getting like really entrenched in this life and lies and all of these secrets, you think it would be be a lot more interesting than it really was. And it ultimately just ended up being very, very boring. It was a lot of just them sitting with the guilt of what they've done and dealing with, or trying to figure out how to deal with it and how to get away with it. And then that was kind of really it. Really it. Like, it didn't delve into anything that I wanted to really at all. Didn't, like, aside from certain parts that felt very pretentious, it didn't feel very academically driven. I don't know, like, I felt like there could have been so many more things about ancient Greek stories that could have been brought forward. And yeah, it just didn't work for me. It didn't work for me, sadly. I might have been like wildly missing something. That's possible. That's very possible. This could have been like too smart a book for me, but did not do it, and really just came out of it kind of bored and underwhelmed. So yeah, that's a fail. I'm giving it like 3 stars. Wasn't terrible, and 3 stars is like my rating of just, it was good, it was okay, it was completely fine. You know, it's one of those books that it's like enjoyable, but not anything that's gonna stick in my mind. So there's that. And then the one that I'm even more disappointed about, I started and then DNF'd. Intermezzo. And I know Sally Rooney is not for everyone, but she's honestly really worked for me in the past. I've read 2 of her books. So Normal People, and then I think Beautiful World, Where Are You? No, Conversations with Friends. So Conversations with Friends and Normal People, really enjoyed both of them. I think I gave both 4 stars. Really liked her writing, really liked just so much about it. Like, I have very fond memories of the first time reading Normal People, and just hadn't read a book quite like that, and that had entrenched, like, or had gripped me quite as much as that one did. So I'm just really disappointed in this. There's just a lot that I could not get myself into. We're basically following 2 brothers and them following the death of their father. So trying to move on, and as they're trying to find a way to reconnect and get their relationship back to like a healthy level. And it's also very entrenched in the worlds of chess, where both of them are chess players. And just something about this one I just really was not enjoying, and just didn't want to keep going. I got about 30% in, and I just like, and it really felt like it would be like a chore to keep going. So I didn't want to do it. And yeah, I was so ridiculously not into this one. I will say I am gonna give it a try on audio eventually. I placed a hold on audio, which it's still like a 6-month hold, so we will be waiting for quite a while, and maybe at some point I'll give an update on whatever vlog I'm reading it in. But yeah, it didn't work for me, and I just found it kind of boring. So unfortunately, that's a DNF. And yeah, we're not having very good luck in this video. I didn't know I was going to be going for books that I potentially could not like, but yeah, I am very disappointed. Alright, so I 100% had been putting off reading this one for a while. I don't know what it is, but I was feeling really intimidated by it. Like, I always have this thing in my head where I feel very scared to get into very intense epic sci-fi, and then as soon as I start reading, I remember that it's like literally my favorite thing in the world, and like my all-time favorite type of thing to read. So I don't know, but for some reason, like, even though this one has been so hyped, something in my mind kept telling me that it was going to be the most dense, unreadable, boring thing in the world. And I think it's just so many mixed reviews, because I think a lot of people, the really good reviews I'm seeing are more people who like align with my taste, and then the people who aren't enjoying it as much, people who do not. So I think I was kind of just letting those like reviews get to me a little bit, and I was not excited. And to be fair, also about 6 months ago I tried to read this, and I think I read 1 chapter before my hold expired at the library, and then I didn't pick it back up. And then also when I started this one, I read 1 chapter and then put it down for like 3 weeks, which is a mistake. Very much a mistake. This is something that, you know, you need to read like a fair amount to get into the world. And when something has this heavy of world building and this many things going on, you can't really get a sense from the first chapter of what the book will be like. And especially this one, the first chapter is dry as hell. And that absolutely scared me off picking this up for the longest time again, because yeah, nothing interesting happened. We sounded like we were just like with this really spoiled, noble kid. And the vibes of that first chapter were not what I wanted. But I do have to say, as soon as I got to, I think it was like the 60-page mark, things wildly changed for me on my thoughts of this book. And I got immediately so ridiculously immersed in this. Basically, we are following Hadrian. He is the son of one of the like more powerful noblemen in this galaxy. So this is very like huge expansive world across many planets. We're following like, there's this huge empire with many planets falling underneath it. And his father is a very rich nobleman, because they have access to a uranium mine. He is the firstborn son, and he always kind of assumed that that would mean that he would one day become the heir to his father's seat. But at the same time, his brother is very much his father's father's favorite and his younger brother, and he's starting to realize that maybe he doesn't fit in as well with his family as he thought he would. So something happens that brings shame to the family, and his father basically decides to sell Hadrian to the like religious order in this world, and this is like the last thing he wants. He wants, like, if anything, he would rather be like, there's this group of scholars that are very, very like they investigate the world, you know, they like figure out things and just like do, I don't know, they're scholars, and he's really interested in being part of them because I think they're also slightly like scholar warriors. And when he is sold to the scholars, he comes up with this crazy plan that basically ends up him being sent away on a pirate ship to get away from where he was supposed to be sent. And this pirate ship dumps him on a random planet, and he's in cryo sleep, so he's spent like many years basically asleep and had no idea what happened. And then from there he basically is like an orphan alone. He's alone on the streets. He's trying to survive in complete poverty because he can't access any of his, like, basically any of the money that he would have associated to his name, because his father would then know where he is. So he spends a lot of years in poverty basically, and then ends up becoming basically a fighter in these gladiator rings. And we're just following this crazy story right now of him as he's going from seemingly like nothing to what we know of him from the back is that he is a man who destroyed a sun, annihilated 4 billion human lives, and goes against imperial orders to do this because he gets involved in this huge war against this alien race. Loving it, 100% invested in it right now. Like, that was just a very quick overview of some of the things that have happened, but I am 100% invested. And yeah, it's kind of ridiculous because this is just so interesting to me, and I can't believe I put off picking it up for this long. And I've also been trying to think of like really what this reminds me of. I think the closest I'm coming to it is The Name of the Wind, and in particular parts where our main character was living on the streets for many years, but still like using all of this intelligence he has to get himself still live on the streets, but do slightly better than the others on the streets, I guess. And I think that is the closest thing that I'm bringing to mind of like what this reminds me of, but it's fantastic. And yeah, I am thoroughly loving it. Well, yeah, this was amazing. I cannot believe I waited so long to get to this one. Like, this has been on my TBR for so long, and this video was really like the reason that I finally got myself to read this. And man, I am so intensely disappointed in myself for waiting this long. I truly was obsessed with like everything that was happening in this. It had so many interesting like fantasy and sci-fi elements, and fantasy just in the sense that there's so many plot points that were happening that you would typically see in fantasy books, and they were just like working so well to make this such a fascinating world. And we explored 2 planets on this one of them not really that much in depth, so really just like one planet. And I have a feeling that this series is going to be so expansive and really dive into so many other planets, so many other potential alien cultures, because there's like 2 alien species identified in this one, and I really think that we're going to be seeing so many more. And I'm so excited to see, like, it was definitely laying down the roots for so many things that I think could come in like just so many interesting ways, because we really saw the beginnings of what is going to be this huge intergalactic war, of what is going to become this huge intergalactic war. And like, the world's already at war, and it's this war that's seemingly endless. But Hadrian, our main character, he seems to have all of these ideas of ways that the war could be fought differently, and just all of these different things that he thinks should be done differently. And you can kind of sense that it's really going to go in an interesting route of him coming into the war and just maybe like completely like igniting everything up. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to continue on in this series. I think I'm gonna like go buy the second book right now, because it is one that I can tell I'm gonna want on my shelves. And also, like, these are very hard to find online. So these are very hard to find. So like, just at the library, there's like 1 copy on Libby that's like 8-month waits. So I don't want to do that. I would like to read one of these a month maybe, and just like have another series that I'm working on finishing, because I think there's 6 books in it. Yeah, I would just like to continue and really get into it. So with that, we'll be finishing off this video. And this is an interesting one. Like, there were some major wins, like this one for sure. But we had so many fails in this one. Can't believe how many books I didn't have to. Can't believe how many books I gave like lower ratings, and many like highly anticipated books ended up going terribly wrong. But I did go into this saying that I wanted to experiment a little bit and see. So I mean, we did that for sure. But as always, thank you for watching, and if you haven't already, I would love if you subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in a video soon. Bye.